Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's going to be doing a comparison between the all-new 2024 BMW X5 and the Genesis GV80. Before we get in this video though, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the BMW Pleasant Grove for giving me some time with this X5, and to the Genesis of Linden for giving me some time with this GV80. I'll include a link to both of their websites in the description down below so you can check out what both of the stores have currently. And then on a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. Powering the Genesis is a twin-turbo 3.5-liter V6 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy is 18 around town, and then 23 on the highway, with power outputs being 375 horsepower and then 391 pound-feet of torque. Powering the X5 is a turbocharged 3-liter inline-6 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy is 23 around town and then 27 on the highway, with power outputs being 375 horsepower and then 398 pound-feet of torque. Now, before we go over the front ends, I do want to mention, if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So starting with the GV80, first off, this one is very, very green. I think it's pretty cool, but notice with the design, it's kind of like boxier. Look at the hood. For example, you guys can see very square with the lines, and then coming down below, the headlights go with that design theme, and then the grille, right? Very vertical, absolutely massive as well. So it gives it this like stately, kind of more boxy design. Whereas with the BMW, I mean, look at the front end, how it's kind of like shorter, if that makes sense. You can see next to each other. And so the BMW has gone for more angular, aggressive, sporty design, and the headlights definitely lead to that conclusion. And so let me know which front end design you think looks better. Now, the tire and wheel setup with the Genesis is 265, 40, 22 in the front and over in the rear, whereas with the BMW, it is 275, 45, 20 in the front and over in the rear. So the BMW has slightly smaller wheels, but a little bit more sidewall with the tires. Here's your full side view with the GV80, and I really like a lot of the design touches. You guys can see the silver trim around the windows and then also down below as well. Look at the body painted fender flares with this one. Again, definitely more luxury looking, again, more boxy with the design. Now with the X5, you guys can see that things are a little bit more rounded off with the design here, but notice we got some sporty touches like the venting there on the side. On this big X5, the fender flares are unpainted, but on certain packages you can get those body painted, and then you do actually have silver trim around the windows, which is interesting. Now here are the key fobs with both of the vehicles. Pretty interesting. So the Genesis key fob has tons of controls on it. You've got your self-park, you've got your remote start, your door lock and unlock, hatch opening, all that. With the BMW, you've got your lock function there, and then if I actually flip it over here to the side, sorry, it's hard to fumble with two keys in your hand. You got like your hatch opening and everything, but yeah, let me know which key fob you think is cooler. Now, popping into the rear of the X5, you guys can see we've got a cargo cover here in the back, and storage space back here is just absolutely plentiful. Now, something I love about the X5 is it has the tailgate feature. So you guys can see this is separate from the hatch, and so you can imagine there's a lot of utility with that. But the coolest part is when you close it all up, it closes all together. Now, the Genesis has pretty much the same amount of cargo space here in the back. It might be just slightly larger. The Genesis is a slightly larger vehicle is what it looks like. You can see you've got a 12 volt here, and then this is for the seats to fold them down or raise them up. And then this one just has a regular hatch, so you just press this and then it'll just, you know, close down like normal. Now, when it comes to style, you guys can see, again, a little bit more rounded off, a little bit more angular here at the rear end of the X5. I do love these new taillights. I think the design with that's really cool. And then you got your regular badging here on the back, and then you can see the exhaust tips at the bottom with the parking sensors. I actually have a receiver hitch with this one, but pretty cool. And then contrast that with the GV80. Again, you've got the taillights that actually look like the headlights, all of the badging here on the back, and then look at the covers for the exhaust tips. And again, it's more boxy with the overall design. So let me know which rear end you think looks best. Well, sitting here in the back of the BMW, first off, legroom is great. Got a little storage pocket there, and then you guys can see a little charging port area, which is pretty cool. We do have our own climate zone here in the back. We've got heated seats as well, which is a nice feature. And by the way, these seats are incredibly comfortable. I also love the design. I think that BMW is knocked out of the park with this whole seat setup. And then also with the door panel, I love the two-tone design with the leather trim here. Got like the ambient lighting strip there, and then look at the wood trim as well. And then for those of you that are wondering, headroom's also good back here. Now here in the back of the Genesis, you guys can see Legroom is Plentiful. We also have our own climate controls here in the back. We also have cooled seats, which is cool. Got some charging outlets. And then look at these rear seats. I think the design is pretty dang nifty overall. They are comfortable. I feel like the BMW seats are slightly more comfortable, but they're both really good. And then headroom back here, it's great. We also have some mirror action. And then look at the door panel here with the leather trim and the wood trim and everything. I think they've done a really good job with the design. Now at the front of the X5 here, really cool looking steering wheel. You got paddle shifters here on the back. I love the stitching design here. And then you got stuff like your cruise control, volume controls, all of that. And then here's a quick look at the door panel, by the way. You can see the two-tone design just like the rear. Look at the window controls as well. You've got your memory seat function built in. And then we also have blind spot monitoring for the mirrors. And let's listen to the sound. Solid sound. So here's the gauge cluster. It's BMW's digital gauge cluster. The cool part about this is when you change the drive modes, it'll actually change the look of the gauge cluster depending on the drive mode. The coolest one is Sport. Makes everything super aggressive. And then the next thing is going to be in reverse. We do have a 360 camera system with this, as you can see, which is another nice feature to have. Resolution with that's fantastic, by the way. And then as for the rest of the infotainment system itself, this is BMW's new Hyperscreen. Response time with this is great. It's frankly really easy to use. You got the shortcut bar there on the side, and I'm not sure why the vents are blowing so hard. I thought I turned on the fan speed, but I guess I only turned it down for one of the zones. But yeah, response time with the screen is great. It's easy to use. And then look at the trim down below. I think that looks really cool. And notice how that goes the X5. Got the wood trim here, and then look at the leather on the dash. And then you guys can see a little wood trim piece there. Wireless phone charging pad, got some cup holder action right there as well. And then this is the analog control for the infotainment system, and then our transmission selector. It's this weird like knob thing, which is interesting. And then you got stuff like your stability control, parking sensors, your drive mode select, hill descent control, parking brake. And then here's the center console, USB there. Really nice leather trim on the top. And then you got the glove box, which quite spacious indeed. And then up top we do have a full panoramic sunroof. Now inside of the Genesis, we have this interesting two-spoke design with the steering wheel. Definitely unique, that is for sure. But also two-tone as well, so two-spoke, two-tone. I think the paddle shifters in the Genesis are a little bit nicer with the feel. The BMW has like the plastic feel on the back. And then you got like your cruise control, all that kind of stuff, just like the BMW. And then again, the front door panel, super similar to the rear one. Again, you got like all of your window controls, mirror adjustment, all that. The mirrors power fold in. They got blind spot monitoring. And solid sound, just like the BMW when you close it. Now this is pretty cool. When you turn on the turn signal, it does a little camera. But yeah, we've got this digital gauge cluster. This is like the 3D one, which doesn't really pop up onto camera, but it looks pretty crazy. And then just like the BMW, when you change the drive modes, it does kind of change how the gauge cluster looks a little bit. And then we do have a 360 camera system, just like the BMW. And then as for the infotainment system, it's actually pretty far away here on the dash. It is a touchscreen though, which is a nice feature to have. And also we got massaging seats, which is another nice feature. But they do give you a dial to control the infotainment system. I'd say that when you're driving this, because I have lived with one of these before, you're going to use the dial quite a bit. And then look at the dash on this with the material use. And then you get your climate controls down below. I will say this is a little bit more intuitive to use than the BMW. Wireless phone charging pad with some USBs. And then we've got our dial control for the infotainment system right next to the dial shifter. I've never mistaken them, but people always like to make the joke that you might. And then got the cup holders. I do like the wood trim here more because I'm not a fan of like the high gloss. That's just my personal opinion. Got hill descent control, center locker, drive mode select, all that. And then you got the center console, which is pretty spacious. Nice trim here on the top. Also, look at that. You can adjust the seat from the rear with these controls. That's for that passenger. It's kind of funny. And then, yeah, nice glove box lined with felts. Again, this is more luxury with the interior in terms of the theme, is what I'm noticing. And then we do have a nice headliner as well, and then we have a double sunroof, so one in the front and then one in the rear. Now when it comes to pricing, they're almost about the same. So that's about $77,300, that's about $77,800. So the BMW is actually slightly more expensive. But anyways, with that being said, let's see how they drive. Oh. I was looking for the stop start button up there. Okay, so we are starting in the BMW X5 and she's low on fuel. So I've got, actually, let's just turn this off all the way. No climate controls. I'll just get a little sweaty in here. I do have the air conditioned seat function on though, so hopefully that'll keep me somewhat cool. But anyways, I really like the seats in this. I think the seats are really comfortable. This person's not even... They are literally texting there in the middle of the... Why? What are you doing? What are you doing? Anyways, I like the driving dynamics of this. It feels very sporty. Again, that's something that all BMWs have. Yeah, the handling's really good. And you know, so far, honestly, you know what, I just did that comparison like a month or so ago with the 23 X5 versus the GV80, and a lot of the stuff I said in that comparison I feel like applies to this one. It seems like this is definitely focused on the sporty side of things. I will say though, the ride quality is really good. You know, I know some of you might like the look of 22s more, but having these 20s with a little bit more sidewall, especially with these roads we have here in Utah that are pretty beat up after the winter, it helps out quite a bit. Let's pop in Eco Pro. See if that helps out. What is that staticky sound? That is, I've never heard that before. It almost sounds like something's coming through the radio, but the volume's off. Weird. Okay, so we're in the sport mode here. Woo! This thing's quick. So I said this in my, we're gonna pop back to Eco Pro so we can hopefully get back. I said this in my X5, my 2024 X5 review, and I still stand by this. This doesn't really feel quicker than the previous X5. It feels pretty much the same. What I think BMW did is they underrated the power for the 23 X5. They said, oh, it's 335 horsepower, when in reality it was 375, and now they're saying, you know, it's 375 horsepower. That's kind of what it feels like. It's still very quick. Like this inline six is such a good engine. This is, you know, already I feel like this engine's already legendary, but it's going to go down as one of the best powertrains ever made in a car, period. It's just such a good engine. But to pull everything together here with the X5, I think that the new styling, I think they did a good job with updating it. Just looks a little bit more modern. I think the interior too, fit and finish is great. That's one of the things that I love about modern BMWs, really, like, you know, tight interiors now, and I like the contrast with this particular interior. And then with the driving dynamics, it's very sporty. It's got great handling, and so if you're looking for like a luxury sport SUV with an emphasis on sport, that's what the X5 provides. Well, we are setting off in the GV80 back to back with the X5. And I can tell you, I can already tell the difference between the tires with these vehicles. The GV80 obviously has slightly lower profile tires with larger wheels, and so you do get a little bit more harshness over bumps because of that. But you know, you can always change tires and wheels on vehicles. That's an easy fix. Handling's way different. The GV80 feels like it feels like a larger vehicle, and it handles that way. It's not like it handles bad. It actually handles really well for an SUV. But it doesn't have the same like razor sharp edge that the BMW has. It's more, you can tell it's more tuned on the luxury side. And speaking of luxury, this is why I like the dial, because it's easier to do this while you drive. Let's go over to seats. Wait, does this one not have the massaging seats? I guess I was wrong. Huh, I thought this one had the massaging seats on it. No, maybe, I swear it does. Yeah, it does. There we go. Massaging seats. It's the button on the side. I forgot. It's been a minute since I've driven a GV80. Ah, getting a massage. Living the life of luxury. But yeah, so far, I'd say that on the luxury side of things, they're pretty dang close. But the biggest differentiating factor is actually not the suspension. It's just the wheels with the vehicles. Having bigger wheels, it's not bad, but it does change the dynamics with the GV80. We're in the sport mode with the Genesis. Another big difference is how the engines perform. You know, the acceleration in this is really good. It just doesn't have the same punch as that inline six. That BMW inline six produces torque at such a low RPM range that it just is like punch and go. There's still a punch, but it's just not as aggressive, and then it goes. But I've just noticed that with inline sixes versus V6s. It seems like inline sixes are just always better when it comes to torque. Even if the torque figures are the same, just how that torque is delivered, it's always a difference. So summing things up with this comparison, same conclusion as when I did the first comparison. It seems like the BMW is luxury sport, whereas the Genesis is luxury, right? And you know, they both have, like, the BMW still has, like I said, that's why I say luxury sport. It still has a lot of luxury characteristics to it with the interior, the driving dynamics, and all of that. And then this, you know, even though I'm saying luxury, it still handles really well for an SUV. It's not like, you know, wallowy all over the place. Like, it handles on an edge. It's just not as, like I said, it's just not as razor sharp as the BMW. And so I think that, you know, it's just going to depend on what you're looking for. For me personally, you know, I kind of lean more towards the luxury side of things now, because I just do a lot of driving, and so, like, I just want to be in comfort. But I know a lot of people, like a lot of car enthusiasts especially, the thing that's really appealing is having a car that you can have a ton of fun in with the driving, but then on top of having a ton of fun with the driving, you can also, you know, daily drive it and all that. Let me know which one you like more.